Hello, everybody. Welcome to Transcend with NNG. I am your host, Brittany Walker, also known as New Nation Goddess. Today, we're going to be tapping into Season 2, Episode 2, Define Your Purpose. Again, guys, we're tapping on the 8 frequencies of elevation. And our very first frequency that we like to discuss is defining your purpose. So learning how to determine your purpose in order to fulfill your destiny. So happy Wealth and Wellness Wednesday. We are so excited today, guys, to tap into those good old wealth and wellness tips. And like we discussed during our first episode, Season 2, we're bringing on guests that are going to be specialized in these different frequencies, that are expert in these fields, and they're going to help us elevate and climb to where we're supposed to be transcending at this point in our lifetime. All right, guys. So I definitely would like to first start off with the tea of the day. You know, I always like to tell you guys what we're sipping on. So today I decided to do a raspberry hibiscus tea. Yes, so it has raspberry, it has hibiscus, Jamaican hibiscus, it has ginger, cinnamon, turmeric, our faves. It has some oat milk, a little bit of vanilla. I have some rose hips in here, some lemongrass, some orange peel. And this is great coming into, of course, the winter season. We want to make sure that we're detoxing our bodies. Ladies, we want to make sure we're protecting our wounds and keeping that inflammation down for that time of the month. We want to make sure that we're draining any excess mucus that we're getting from the sugary drinks or the sugary foods and the things that we may be consuming coming off of a traditional holiday season. For those of you who celebrate the holidays, or happy belated Kwanzaa to those of you who were dedicated to the African culture. We want to make sure that we rise up and come together and conquer what's rightfully ours. So I want to go ahead and take my first little sip and also discuss our first guest for today. I'm so excited to bring this guest on, guys. I'm going to go through the bio. I want to make sure I don't miss out on any information. But today we are going to be bringing on Dr. Ashley Wade, who is the author of It's a Journey, a holistic journal for discovering yourself. You remember today, guys, we're talking about defining your purpose. So this is the perfect person to bring on at this opportune time. She is also the owner of ADH Pharmacy Consulting, LLC. She is also an enthusiastic advocate for the community, service, and literacy in the Black community. She also uses her Instagram platform to interview people who are doing great work in the community and to share their work as they are a toy doing with the good people in the wider universal reach. All right, guys. So recently she had hosted a community book read of the popular book, The Accommodation, The Politics of Race in an American City, at the historic Griggs Park, the Negro Park #1 in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. You can find her encouraging people to do the work of self-discovery, speaking with the public about health, literacy, and disease state management, also sharing her books. Please welcome Dr. Ashley Wade to Transcend with NNG podcast. Hello, Dr. Ashley Wade.
Be here. Yes, ma'am.
How are you doing on this beautiful Wealth and Wellness Wednesday?
All is well, and I'm happy to report that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So typically, to keep it going, guys, I always like to go into our book of the day. Typically, we give a reference with Transcend with NNG because we want to promote literacy. We want to promote knowledge acquisition. So I want to first ask you, Ashley, tell us some of the books that have been instrumental in you having your self-discovery and defining your purpose, or what are just your favorite books in general?
I love to read, and it's crazy because I can name about 10 books. I'm like, oh, this one. But my favorite one to share is Light from Ancient Africa by Na'im Akbar. I also honor Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself by Nader Gulliver Tawwab. So just to kind of get into the psychology of understanding the self, from the psychological perspective, and then also from the African perspective.
Love that. Love that. And I know you also mentioned the autobiography of Angela Davis was in
Yes,
one of those
ma'am.
lists. So I definitely wanted to plug, guys, I like to show books in the mix. It's one of my favorite books as well. I love that she had that. And all of the books that Ashley has mentioned, guys, I'm going to drop in the description of this episode so you're able to plug it as well. Ashley, I also want you to plug yourself because you are all about literacy, but plug that Instagram, plug that information so they can catch that tag.
Right, so listen, you guys, please follow me on Instagram at Read with Dr. Wade. So typically that's where I share a lot of the information and the books that I read. So if I'm reading something, I'll typically share pages because what I found is it's more of a community when people can put their eyes on the actual pages and the words, and they can connect with it a little bit better, especially for the non-readers. So definitely follow me, and then let's share some literacy, love, and light.
Yes, I love that. So I had to let you guys know you caught the first word in her name is read. Read with Dr. Wade. I love, love, love that. So moving forward, guys, we also like to have our I Am series. I Am represents inspiration, affirmations, and manifestations. So the I Am power statement for today is I am taking the necessary steps to take care of myself in order for me to discover who I really am and what my purpose in this lifetime is. Ashe. So, you ready to get started, Ashley?
I'm ready. You know, they say stay ready.
Yes, we stay ready. We stay ready. Okay, so I have this new statement. People always like to say, what's the tea? That's old. I like to say, what's the chai? Because chai is typically my favorite tea. So let's get into this chai, honey. We're going to get into this cinnamon and this cardamom and this nutmeg and all this stuff that be elevating this melanin. Yes. So,
Right.
Ashley, when did you realize that you had to find your purpose?
I realized that I defined my purpose probably within 2022. Ending of 2021 is when I really started to kind of fine tune what I'm supposed to be doing. So with the read component, that would always kind of throw me for a loop. With the pharmacy component, that was easy. I love to connect with people about their medications and, talk about disease states and help people become healthier, mind and body, and hopefully curb some of their medications eventually once they kind of connect better with themselves. But I really couldn't, it was the read part that I wasn't sure about. And so I kind of toyed with that with a little bit because I was like, that's not my profession. But I learned when it comes to our culture, we're not just one thing. When you read about what our ancestors did, and not only our far ancestors, but our near ancestors, Angela Davis, for one, she did tons of things. She was an advocate. She was a political prisoner. She also was a very pivotal person in the community and an intellectual. So all those things. So for me, I think this year in 2022, I learned that the literacy part is key for my purpose. I love the medication side of what I do, but the literacy part is right in tune to why I'm here on this planet right now.
Absolutely. And with our culture, it's such a taboo now to want to read. People frown upon wanting to read, like, if you read, you're basic or you're boring, and at one point it was illegal for us to be able to read and write. You also tapped on another gem that you mentioned about curbing off of medications. You want to promote the health of our community. You want to teach them there are holistic ways to approach things. And I love that you're doing that. For anybody that doesn't know the background story, I manifested Ashley in my life. I don't care what nobody say. I manifested her. I was looking for a pharmacist or somebody that was in the medical field that had a holistic approach to things. And of course, it's not easy to wean yourself off of medication, especially when you've been on it for so long or it's attached to a specific illness or disease that you may have. But the fact that she's wanting to educate you and help you to really become who you're meant to be without maybe tapping into Western medicine so much and really diving into what our culture and our history is. I just love that you're doing that. And I want to praise you and commend you. And I honor you for being a goddess and becoming an auntie and an elder, for our current generations and the generations behind us. So gratitude to you for that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Absolutely. So what obstacles? So I love that you are newly into your purpose. We're coming into, 2023, it's been in the last year and a half that you're really tapping into this. So this is giving people light. This is helping people see that I don't have to have it all figured out right away. So I love that you're at this place and you're advocating for that. So what obstacles did you overcome to get to where you're at right now?
I would say the self-discovery component of this part of perception. I won't necessarily call it an obstacle, but in real life, that's what it is. You do have to go through a transition of figuring out who you are. You do have to kind of weed through some of the issues or some of the problems that you've endured to kind of figure out where you are truly as a person, as a spirit, as a soul, because no life is without conflict. I always like to say that. I found that in one of the books that I'm reading, the Colburn Bible, but it's an obstacle because no one wants to do it. Unless you're enlightened and you already are becoming aware of your self-discovery, it can be an obstacle. So I will say that is continuously something that I'm growing with, just learning how to navigate life from a spiritual, elevated perspective. It becomes easy. So once you get over looking at self-discovery as an obstacle, you kind of fine tune, you read, you figure out how people connected with their inherent spirit to kind of guide how they paid attention to certain things. Then it becomes less of an obstacle and it becomes fun, actually. Like, oh, now I have this deposit. What am I supposed to do here? Or I have this roadblock. What am I supposed to do here? Instead of letting it crush you or disconnect you from your purpose, figuring out how to use that or what signs or signals are coming from that, instance per se.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And what we have to realize, one of my favorite references is to this. I have posted this video that came from my mentor. Shout out to DJ Moultrie with the Black Equity Network and Acquisitions Network. He sent me this video about Erykah Badu, and she talks about the 85% of the population are pretty much followers. Then you have 15% of the population that are like the millionaires, like they kind of have it together, but they're selling everybody and they're not quite there. And then you got that 5% that is like the real wealth builders, the real alchemists, the real healers, the real educators, the people that are able to be strong enough to transcend through these obstacles that become easier to us because we're recognizing and we don't have on these rose shaded glasses, and we're able to help and try to reach out to the other 15 to 85%, which could be difficult. But yeah, so I love that you mentioned how it can get easier with time once you become more cognizant and you come to more of a spiritual awareness of who you really are and the power that you really possess in that pineal gland and in that melanin that you have. So with that said, so I love that. So what do you feel like is the best part of self-discovery for anybody, not just yourself?
I think the best part is freedom. I feel like that's something that we're all looking for. Transculturally, we're looking for freedom. We're looking for a place where we can really be ourselves, where you're looking for a place of acceptance. We're looking for a place to grow. And the biggest thing that you can do is allow yourself to grow, and that you need freedom to do that. So whenever you do start connecting with yourself, it may be bumpy at first, but you'll realize that you'll learn along that discovery path that you accept yourself. And then that love starts to come around, because I think one of the biggest misconceptions is people are like, well, I love myself, but that doesn't translate into life, if that makes sense. So that self-love and that self-discovery has to translate over into life. If it's not translating over, you're not actively working. And it may take a little bit longer. And again, it's not something that you just get and you got it and you're done. You constantly have to work through discovering yourself, because life is going to throw you challenges. But again, once you get more connected with yourself, you understand how the spirit communicates with you, and then you can navigate those challenges, and then be proud of yourself on the back end. So freedom can lead for you to be proud of yourself. And then that, to me, is where you get into self-love, where you can just sit and say, you know what, I did this, or I set this boundary, or I now have peace. And so that kind of connects to that freedom and benefit of having that connection with self.
That was beautifully said. I was going to tap in. I was like, I agree with everything. The only other word I was going to throw in is peace. And you ended it with peace. I'm like, if she's going to get out my head, this is why I am connected to Goddess. Come on, Starseed. Yes. So I am here for it. Freedom. The best part of self-discovery is your freedom of your time, freedom of your mind, freedom of your soul, everything. When you can sit and, like you said, be proud of yourself. Like, I did that shit. Like, I really accomplished that. When so many people might feel like it's too hard, you have everything that you need already to make it happen. Once you get out of your head and get out of that fear and get out of believing on what everybody else and what society told you you're supposed to be, that sense of freedom, you hit the nail on the head with that, Dr. Ashley. Yes, I love that answer. So, what typically prevents individuals from defining their own purpose? I mean, we just kind of tapped on fear a bit, but what else can you elaborate on a bit more about what typically do you see hinders people from getting to that 5%?
There are several things. The first one, which you already know I'm going to, is literacy. Because we don't know. And, our culture is very vulnerable in the fact that our history, we've been disconnected from it. And so one reason that I feel like that I'm allowed freedom, and that's why I know that literacy is right in my purpose, is because sometimes people just literally do not know that there's another way. They literally do not know that there's another version of self still connected to the body that can transcend. They literally do not know that. So definitely literacy. I'll also say your voice. Growing up, depending on your environment, you shrink yourself, self-esteem, some of those things we don't adequately even define. You know what I'm saying? Especially at younger ages. And we don't have conversations. So we never really know when it's safe to actually explore. And so when you have that, when you're not sure if it's safe to explore, yes, you're going to stay in that safe area. You're going to stay in that status quo of your life and do the one thing. You'll follow the script all the way through. Okay, I'm going to college. I'm going to get my education. I'm going to find a career. That is the traditional script. But you don't necessarily find happiness in that. You don't necessarily find fulfillment in purpose. And so you do have to expand your mind. You do have to hear maybe someone else's story, maybe someone else's philosophy. Shout out to Angela Davis, shout out to Assata Shakur, Marcus Garvey, some of those people who their purpose was to help us see there's a broader scope connected to our melanin. Yes. And so when you don't get there in your literacy, then you can fall victim to the manipulation of society and standards and things like that.
Absolutely. It's so funny that you said that. I literally, as you have my goddaddy on your wall. See, in my head, y'all, Malcolm X, Michael Davis, Marcus Garvey, all of them was Uncle, Aunties, goddaddy, somebody, right? So I just literally saw one of my favorite speeches about Malcolm X where he's talking about the media, how the difference between the house Negro, the field Negro, how it's still happening, and how these prominent figures in our Black community, and I don't care, I'm about to name drop the Tyler Perrys, the Steve Harveys, the sports. I don't even want to say certain people in the sports industry, but certain people that are now conforming to steering us away from what we need to be focused on. And so, like you said, you just have to have that knowledge for yourself, and you have to respect the people that have laid and been trailblazers and galvanized for us to have the opportunities that we have. So we don't have to be brainwashed, and we don't have to be conformed to what Dr. Ashley mentioned as traditional ways of what we think society is supposed to be and how we're supposed to live and how we kind of live that robotic life throughout our duration. It's just different forms of slavery that we're hitting, and we have to really not be shackled and become free. So I love that you mentioned all of those great things. Let's talk about some of your recommendations. What do you have? What advice do you have to give to those who are struggling to define who they really are, or versus what society is portraying who they should be? We just mentioned, let's talk about what happened a couple of months ago with Kyrie Irving and, you know, this whole incident with the movie. You know, you have all these people now coming out from our culture that we look up to that telling us, oh no, Kyrie's wrong. That, you know, so now we have us, the people that are middle class men or the lower class men, that the people, and we're looking up to them like, well, what should we do? Who do we go with? Like, what do we believe? Of course, you're going to go with who the Tyler Perry is saying, who the Steve Harvey is saying, who the LeBron James is saying, because that's who we look up to. They're rich, they're prominent, but that is exactly what Malcolm X talks about. Exactly, with the field Negro and the house Negro. And so what recommendations would you give for our people that are struggling to figure out how to define their purpose and what to do, since society told us it has to be this way?
There's a couple things. The first thing I want to say is you have to journal. And I'm going to start by recommending guided journals. Because if you don't know that there are additional thoughts that you can have, then you're going to only look to other people and you're going to look outside of yourself for answers, and you're going to be easily manipulated. So that's one thing. My book is a guided journal. It goes a little bit deeper. It's not quite surface level, but I'm not just going to sit here and say, oh, go get my book, you know, to get you going. But one thing that I did use in my book is a process. So there's a process of defining your voice, understanding, you know, deficiencies in childhood, understanding environment. So my book goes that route. But there are a lot of other great guided journals that ask you questions. And some of those you're like, okay, I never thought of that. And so it challenges your psyche to develop more ideas. So the first thing is journal. 2, if you're a reader, tap in. Read that, you know, that was, I think the book and the documentary was referenced Hebrews to Negroes. Read it if you're a reader. Tap in, because that is true. And, you know, so if you're a reader, tap into those books, jump on those references. If you're not a reader, definitely follow me. Follow other readers, you know, get into the community of discussion and book discussions and different book titles, get into that. But also I'll have to recommend that you work on your fear and understanding psychology. Because if you don't, then you'll not pay attention to the manipulation. And I don't use that word lightly. People are like, oh, manipulation, you know, they think psychopath. But when you think about the creation of the country of the United States and you think about what our people went through, there has to be a certain level of like unwellness to take a group, go to somebody's country, take the people, put them into slavery. You know, it's just in buying their mind. So you do have to use some effort to dig your way out of that. So challenge yourself by writing and reading. And if you're not a reader, find a community where you can start where you are. You can get, you know, used to discussing, and you want to be a part of these discussions. And so that to me gives you motivation to read, because look what people are doing. They're discussing. It becomes an intellectual conversation versus just reading a book.
Absolutely. Great recommendations. And like Dr. Ashley said, plug in the book. I'm going to make sure that that is put into our description. I think that will be a great start for a lot of people that are trying to figure out where to go. I noticed when I first started my self-discovery, I was at a place where nobody else around me was there. So I had the fear of everybody. I'm going to be different. I'm going to have to stand out. And even though I liked being different, that was a different sort of different, because you change it, everything. So even if you have the fear of doing it by yourself, like Dr. actually said, you can journal by yourself. You could talk by yourself. You can have these conversations with people over the internet, through social media, through text messages that you don't have to physically be in their face if you're not that comfortable yet. But it's okay to take some time to yourself to go in the corner, shut your room door, and focus on what's going on. She mentioned reading. A lot of people say that they don't have time to read. But 10 pages a day is less than 30 minutes a day. And most of you spend more time on social media than that. More of you spend time gossiping on the phone or shopping on the internet or catching up on Real Housewives or whatever show might be your guilty pleasure. So if you have time to do that, you have time to pop open a book. Even if it's your morning routine, go use the restroom in the morning and read a book. So you have time.
At some point, you will be able to put it down. Like, our history is good. And I think that's a stigma. People think reading is boring. I just want to drop that. It's really not, depending on what you're reading. And if you pick up a book and it's boring, grab another, because you'll get tapped in, and before you know it, you won't want to put it down. And then what a life you have, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to go back to you. We just talked about the outreach that you do in the community. I would like for you to plug some of the things that you do. I know we've talked about your work with the prisons, and I love what you're doing with that. So if you could just talk about some of the things that you do in the community, I want to let the people know, what else does Dr. Ashley have going out there?
Absolutely. So I was connected with this group called Faith in Texas. And specifically, they have what's called a bail fund. And one of my friends actually was volunteering at the jail, and she was like, hey, you come along, you'll find it interesting. And so my very first time visiting the county jail in Dallas, and just going through the process, seeing, you know, people come bail family members out of jail, seeing what that looks like. The environment, there's an ATM, which reminds you that it's cash bail. So, and then you see up close and personal the racism, the classism, things that are set up to keep our people separated and down. And of course, I wanted to be connected with that. And as a matter of fact, they were bailing someone out whose bail was $1. So when you think about, you know, that whole component of the criminal justice system, and I'm not very well versed. You know, I've been involved with the organization for probably about 6 months or so. But when you think about it, you know, the lay person would be like, well, she doesn't have $1, or that person doesn't have $1. But when you think about it, you know, they take your resources when you get there. So you can't go into your wallet, and you also can't use a debit card to get yourself out. You know, somebody has to come down. That means they have to take off work, you know, things like that. And you just kind of see something that we don't quite acknowledge, which is slavery that's still happening through our criminal justice system. So I'm a huge advocate for bail reform. I've also, through this group, been able to have vigils for people who have passed away in jail, and just connecting the community to lay people. You don't have to be an organizer to be involved. You don't have to be, you know, you don't have to have a legacy of civil rights in order to be involved. You know, people need your voice. And I think that's the problem. People think, well, I'm not really interested in jail, but are you interested in people? Are you interested in community? You can get involved and connected with people, and your voice can be useful, and your presence can be useful. So I absolutely enjoy that. And especially through the accommodation, there were a lot of panel discussions. So I was able to have a conversation with County Commissioner John Wally Price, meet the author. So I do want to encourage people, get involved, even if it's, you know, after work on Saturdays. There are a lot of people that I found who are busy in the community, creating the way for people.
Right.
So, and not just in that way, going to plays. Pan-African Connection is a really good community resource. They're always showing documentaries there and showing what Black community looks like, because I think we have a warped idea of what that looks like. And so we have to be active in that, and whatever that looks like. But I'm definitely committed to seeing change come through our communities, and also holding people who we vote, right, ideally accountable, and letting them know that people care. Because at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do. But if they know that there's somebody looking over their shoulder, like, then they're more consciously aware that, they need to make decisions that are viable for the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shout out to Dr. Ashley Wade, guys, out here doing it for the community, doing it for the people. Fist up. Yes. Love it. Love, 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 love. So, we're in January, Black History Month is coming up in the next month. Are there any current events that you're aware of that you have going on, or that you can recommend, or just any other type of resources people can have to tap into more? Because I find more of our culture wanting to tap into things around Kwanzaa, around, Black History Month versus it being a year-round thing. So do you have any announcements or further recommendations that you can plug?
So absolutely. If you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you need to be connected with Sunny South Dallas Food Park. Follow them on Instagram, Sunny South Dallas Food Park. So there is not really a job, but there is a calling called urban planning. So I do know the young lady who facilitates these events. She's an urban planner. So just imagine she can have conversations about redlining and, things like that. So she created this food park. So I recommend that you tap into places where you can touch people and spend your dollars with Black businesses. And so find people in your community that are curating special spaces like that. So the Sunny South Dallas Food Park is a curated special space. It's on the campus of Fair Park, but the businesses are all Black and brown. So it's a special space like that. So I recommend that you find places where you feel comfortable spending your dollar within the Black business. And also you'll find that there's so many more opportunities to get into holistic medicine. People sell sea moss, people sell cleaner body products, soaps, you name it. There's an alternative, and we're doing it, but we're not doing it out loud necessarily. So don't be afraid to get involved in the community. If you're again here in the city on December 11th, that's the next opportunity that the Fair Park will be open. So come out. If you have a business, go to their Instagram and she's taking applications. If you have a small business, big business, whatever, if you are looking to connect with people, get a table. Vendor applications are open. That's another thing that keeps our people separated. We're nervous because we're like, I don't have it all together. I don't have all my products. I want to get these things, but just get out there and connect with people. Your life is just as important as mine. Your voice is just as important as mine, your purpose, your work. And so grow into that by being active. If you sit and hope that purpose comes to you, then it may not manifest. You know what I'm saying? In the time that you want it to manifest. So be busy, get out, and see what's in your community. That can be a big driver of developing and finding purpose.
Absolutely. Be active. You have to put action behind your manifestations. We talk about that all the time. If you go back to season 1, even guys, we talked about it. Matter of fact, during season 1, I talked about a book called Melanin Empath that Dr. Ashley Wade actually referred me to. And in that episode, we discuss about you could manifest all day, but you got to put action behind that. You just can't go, I hope this happens. And then you have to follow through with action. You have to be able to keep fulfilling your purpose. So I love, love, love that last recommendation, guys. Be active. So we definitely want to let you guys know that we are still accepting listener mail. You can reply to this episode directly. We have the polls. If you're listening on Spotify, YouTube, you can actually see the videos as well. So don't forget to check those out. And we're on other various platforms as well. But just to recap, we did talk about frequency number 1, define your purpose out of the 8 frequencies of elevation program with Transcend with N&G. We had the wonderful Dr. Ashley Wade on. Again, plug yourself, your website, your Instagram. Where can we find you?
Definitely Instagram, Read with Dr. Wade. I also have a website, readwithdrwade.com. So I have some really cute merch that kind of matches the energy of elevation, commanding the fact that you're a genius. So readwithdrwade.com. definitely active on Instagram and in the community. So I'll be sharing other events that I'm into or that I support on those platforms.
Absolutely, guys. And be sure to like our podcast. You can go to our website at nngconsulting.org. That's N as in new, N as in nation, G as in goddess, consulting.org. You can also send us an email at info@nngconsulting.org, and I'll plug that information in the description of this episode. So don't hesitate to reach out if there's something you want to hear. Is there additional information you want from Dr. Ashley? We'll be able to plug all of that way that you can contact her as well in the description. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And just as always, guys, gratitude for listening and tuning in to Transcend with NNG podcast as we help the underestimated, who are people of color, women, LGBTQ plus, veterans, and individuals with disabilities, how they can truly become free through financial freedom, wealth building, and achieving optimal wellness. Optimal wellness is not just your physical, but your mental, emotional, and spiritual states as well. So guys, manifesting a positive, productive, and peaceful remainder of your Wealth and Wellness Wednesday. And we'll be talking to you guys next week. Peace.